My name is Layla. I am 22 years old, and today I want to share a story about my first night as a wife. When you imagine a wedding night, what do you see? Perhaps you picture dim candlelight, soft music, and hands touching yours for the first time in the darkness. But a wedding night isn't always what you expect. Sometimes the first night you spend together as husband and wife can be full of fear, misunderstanding, and ultimately the discovery of a truth that changes your life forever. Let me start where everything seemed perfect. It was 2006. I lived in a small northern town. My father was retired and my mother was an art teacher. We had a simple but happy life. I was studying literature at university and loved the poetry of Farouk and Sohrab. I had big dreams. I wanted to become a poet, to travel, and to experience a love I could write about. But fate had other plans for me. One evening, when I came home from university, I found my mother crying in the kitchen. My father sat beside her, his face hidden in his hands. I had never seen them like this. "What happened?" I asked. My mother said in a trembling voice that my father was sick, heart disease. He needed emergency surgery. The cost of the surgery seemed impossible for us. We loved our house, but even if we sold it, we wouldn't have enough money. Weeks passed, and despair settled over our house like heavy fog. Then one day, my aunt came to visit. She was always active in charity work and knew many people. That day, she came with a different expression. She said she knew someone who could help, a man named Arash, wealthy, well-respected, and recently returned from abroad. My aunt said Arash was willing to pay for my father's entire surgery, but he had one condition. He was looking for a wife. He wanted me. "Why me?" I asked. My aunt explained that Arash had seen my photo in one of my mother's art exhibitions and had asked about me. I said, "So he hasn't seen me, only my photo?" My aunt shrugged and said, "He's a respectable man, Layla. I know his family. It's a good offer." I didn't sleep that night. I thought about my father, who was getting weaker every day, about my mother, crying silently, about the future I had imagined for myself. Finally, in the morning, I went to my mother and said, "I agree." My mother cried. My father, when he found out, was angry and said he would never let his daughter be sacrificed. But I was determined. I told him, "Father, you gave your whole life for us. Now it's my turn." The wedding ceremony took place on an autumn day. Rainy weather and yellow leaves mirrored the sadness in my heart. Arash's family held a reception in a large, luxurious hall. I felt like a stranger in my white wedding dress among guests I didn't know. Everyone was smiling and congratulating us, but I only looked into my father's eyes, which were full of sorrow. I saw Arash for the first time there, a tall man with a serious face and piercing eyes. His dark suit fit him perfectly, but he wasn't smiling. When we sat next to each other, he didn't even look at me. He stared straight ahead, as if I didn't exist. I thought, he must hate this forced marriage. He must think I'm like something he bought. After the ceremony, Arash's mother put a diamond bracelet on my wrist. Without any warmth in her voice, she said, "This belonged to Arash's grandmother. Take care of it." The bracelet was heavy, and the diamonds sparkled under the chandeliers, but to me it felt like a rope around my wrist. That night, the party continued in Arash's large house, a huge, modern home with a yard full of trees. I sat in a corner, responding with fake smiles to the guests. Arash was on the other side of the yard, talking to his friends, and didn't look at me once. Gradually, the guests left, and the house became quiet and empty. We were alone, me and this stranger. Without saying a word, he walked toward the stairs. He turned and looked at me, that same cold, emotionless look. I said, "Where?" My voice trembled. He said, "The bedroom. Come upstairs." I went up the stairs. Each step felt like walking on a grave. We entered a large room with a wooden bed and dark blue curtains. The air was cold. Arash stood by the window looking outside. I remained by the door, my hands frozen and trembling, both from cold and fear. Then came a sound that made my heart sink. Click. The door locked. Arash locked the door and put the key in his pocket. I thought, "Oh God, now it's all over." Arash came toward me, closer and closer. I closed my eyes. My body stiffened. I waited for his hand on my shoulder, but nothing happened. I opened my eyes. He was standing in front of me, but he wasn't looking at my face. He was staring at the diamond bracelet on my wrist. He said softly, "Give me your hand." I was startled. Why does he want the bracelet back? Had he changed his mind? Did he want to call off the deal? With a trembling hand, I raised my arm. He gently opened the bracelet and removed it from my wrist. I breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe he just wanted his jewelry back. But then he did something that astonished me. He put the bracelet on the nearby table, then turned and took my hands in his. His hands were warm and soft. I turned my tear-filled eyes toward him. He was warming my frozen hands. His voice, for the first time that night, sounded warm. "You're so cold. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I couldn't answer. I was confused. He let go of my hands and went to the heater. He turned it on. Then he came back and said, "Come closer. Women usually get colder than men." Women? He called me his woman, but not with that cold tone I expected. His voice was almost kind. I went near the heater. I felt the warmth on my skin. Arash sat a few steps away on a chair and stared at me, not with that cold look from before, but with a curious and almost kind expression. I said, Why did you do that?"
He asked, "Do what?" I said, I thought you wanted to." I couldn't finish my sentence. He sighed and said, "You thought I wanted to rape you." I was silent. I lowered my head. His voice became softer. "Layla, I know this marriage wasn't your choice. I know your father is sick, and you agreed because of him. I'm not a bad person. Maybe I seem cold and distant, but—" He paused. He stood up and came toward me. This time I wasn't afraid. He stood close and said, "But I'm not the kind of person who takes advantage of a woman's helplessness and desperation. I helped your father because of my own father. My father died in an accident years ago. The neighbors helped raise me. I always wished that one day I could help someone. When I heard your father needed help—" A tear rolled down my cheek. He continued, "And I saw your photo at the exhibition, next to your mother's painting. Your smile. I wished that one day that smile would be mine. Maybe it sounds foolish, but I fell in love with you from that photo." I looked at him in disbelief. In love with me? This cold, emotionless man? I said, "Then why didn't you look at me even once today?" He smiled bitterly and said,
Because I was scared. Scared that if I came near you, I'd see you were afraid of me. Scared I'd see hatred in your eyes. I preferred to keep my distance. Suddenly, a screech came from the yard. We both jumped. Arash quickly went to the window and looked outside. He laughed and said, "Come here." I went to the window. In the yard, a white cat was stuck in a tree, screeching. Arash said, "This is the one that comes into the yard every night. No matter what I do, it won't leave." Then he looked at me and asked, "Do you like cats?" I said, "Very much." And for the first time, Arash truly smiled, a warm, friendly smile that transformed his serious face. An hour later, in the yard, Arash and I stood by the tree trying to get the cat down. Arash had taken off his jacket and was climbing the branches. We were laughing, struggling, and finally we saved the cat. The frightened cat clung to my arms, and Arash stood beside me, sweaty and smiling. That night, when we returned to the room, Arash turned to me and said, "Layla, tonight I'll sleep on the sofa. This bed is yours. Nothing will happen until you want it to." I said, "But people say on a wedding night—" He interrupted me. "People have never been in our place. We live for ourselves, not for people." That night, I slept in that big, soft bed, not from fear, but from peace. The sound of Arash's calm breathing came from across the room. The white cat, which we named Barfi, Snowy, slept on the chair by the window. And for the first time in weeks, I slept without nightmares. When I woke up in the morning, Arash wasn't there. Next to my bed was a hot cup of tea and a note. "I've gone to buy fresh bread. Barfi has gone about his business. I'll be back soon. Arash." After I drank my tea, I found another piece of paper under the cup. A poem. His own poem for me. That day I learned that Arash had studied literature at university and also wrote poetry. The very thing I had always dreamed of. 15 years have passed since that night. Arash still writes poems for me. His eyes still light up when he laughs, and sometimes Barfi, our white cat, still gets stuck in the tree in the yard. My father's surgery was successful, and he now lives with my mother in their own small house. And I learned that love isn't always fiery and passionate from the start. Sometimes love blooms in a morning cup of tea, in saving a frightened cat, and in respecting each other's boundaries. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone you love. Everyone deserves to know that true love is found in respect and patience, not in force and haste. I am Layla, and this was my story. Thank you for listening.
15 key phrases from Layla's story with explanations. Each step felt like walking on a grave. Shows Layla's deep fear of the wedding night and her prejudice about her future husband. So he hasn't seen me, only my photo? Layla's confusion about a marriage proposal from someone who didn't know her. He bought me like merchandise. Layla's false belief that Arash had purchased her for money. Now it's my turn. Layla's decision to sacrifice herself for her father. The diamond sparkled, but to me it felt like a rope. The diamond bracelet symbolized captivity and ownership for Layla. Click. The door locked. The sound of the lock represents the peak of Layla's fear about that night. I waited for his hand on my shoulder. Layla's terrible expectation of what she thought would definitely happen.
He gently opened the bracelet and removed it. Arash's first unexpected move, showing he wasn't seeking ownership. His hands were warm and soft. The turning point. Layla feels Arash's kindness for the first time. Women usually get colder than men. A simple sentence, showing Arash's attention and care. I fell in love with you from that photo. Arash's confession of his true feelings. Because I was scared. Arash admits his cold behavior came from fear of rejection, not lack of feeling. Saving the white cat. The moment the wall between them breaks down and they laugh together. Nothing will happen until you want it to. Arash's most important promise, showing respect for Layla's choice and consent. Love blooms in a morning cup of tea, and in saving a frightened cat. The lesson of the story. True love is found in simple moments and small kindnesses.